Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. I'm sitting here, tangled up in my own mess. I'm divorced now because my wife cheated on me. It's been almost a year since the split. No kids and my family scattered far away. I'm telling you this because I've got my eye on another man's wife. I can't quite put my finger on what I feel. Maybe it's love, need, or just some wild infatuation. But one thing's for sure, revenge is in the mix. I don't know her well, but we cross paths often during lunch breaks since we work in the same office complex. I've been gathering bits and pieces of information about her, determined to make her mine. But then what? It's disturbing, this intense pull I have. I've tormented her so strongly that I'd almost take her by force if I had to. From what I've learned, she's around 30 with a petite build. Her blouse is always pressed against her, and she's always in short skirts or tight pants that hug her curves just right. No visible lines. Maybe she wears thongs, or maybe nothing at all. She's married to someone who clearly doesn't appreciate her and seems willing to lose her. What really sets me off is that he's the guy who wrecked my marriage by being unfaithful. Now I want to make him pay by being with his wife. I've convinced myself that by taking her, I'm somehow doing her a favor. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm pretty messed up. I've been this way ever since I caught my wife cheating on me. One day, I came home from work early, barely paying attention to my surroundings, only to find my wife in bed with another man. I lost it. I yanked him off her and beat the guy while she screamed in the background. I gave him a good thrashing, and then threw him half naked out onto the street. I didn't bother returning his clothes, but I did toss his wallet and car keys onto the grass. He took off, and I didn't hear from him again until fate brought him back into my life. When I went back to the bedroom, my wife was scrambling to get dressed, tears running down her face as she tried to explain, but I wasn't having any of it. I gave her a hard choice: get out within the hour or face my anger. I left for 2 hours, hoping she'd be gone when I got back. She was, but she left a note that I almost didn't bother reading. I finally picked it up and read it anyway. Dear Mike, I have to confess something. I've made a terrible mistake. Jason doesn't mean anything to me. He's just an old friend from high school. We had a thing back then, but that was all. You knew I wasn't a novice when we got married. Jason was my first love. Seeing him at the mall brought back old memories. At first, it was just a simple catch-up, but then he started flirting, and I got caught up in the nostalgia. He asked me where I lived, and somehow we ended up at our house. I should have stopped it, but I let my guard down. I showed him around, and when we got to the bedroom, he hugged me and kissed me. It felt like we were kids again, and one thing led to another. I deeply regret it, and I'm so sorry I hurt you. Please, Mike, give me another chance. I promise I'll be the faithful wife you deserve. I love you more than anything. Love, Jennifer. That note stung deep, especially now that I knew exactly who was responsible. I used to love my wife, but I'm one of those guys who thinks love can just vanish. In my case, it was gone, replaced by this insatiable need for revenge. It's not something you want. It's something you're compelled to seek out, and I was determined to get mine. The next day, I called in sick so I could take care of business. I got our finances in order, switched up our checking and savings accounts, and canceled almost all our credit cards, except for a couple in my name. I'm a tough guy, and I'm not shy about admitting it. When Jennifer's dad called to find out what was going on, I didn't hold back. I told him exactly what happened. 2 days later, her younger sister, Ashley, reached out. I cut her off mid-apology for Jennifer's actions and told her she had 1 hour to come by and pick up Jennifer's stuff. When Ashley asked if there was anything else, I snapped at her, repeating my deadline. I could hear Jennifer's voice in the background, so I hung up. I contacted my lawyer and had him draw up the divorce papers, leaving Jennifer with nothing. We were renting the house and each had our own cars, so there wasn't much to split. I kept the savings accounts, and Jennifer didn't even try to fight it. I made it clear I'd only talk to Ashley, and only on my terms. Damn. I was hard. Ashley was pretty, even more so than Jennifer, and probably less naive than her weak husband. I was preparing to move out of the house once the divorce was finalized. I called Ashley again, offering her one last chance to pick up her sister's things, explaining that I was moving into an apartment and didn't want to deal with Jennifer's belongings. I made it clear that if she didn't come, I'd throw everything out. She agreed to come that evening and said she could come alone or bring her husband, but Jennifer was not allowed. She ended up showing up alone, saying her husband was busy. I knew her husband was probably nervous, just as Ashley had been when she showed up that day. We went into the bedroom where Jennifer's things were packed up. As she reached for a box, I teased her, saying she hadn't paid her dues yet. She shot me a look, saying she wasn't there for anything like that. I laughed it off, saying it wasn't about love, just a little fun, hinting that she'd secretly wanted it all along. After I helped her load a few boxes into her car, she turned on me, upset. She accused me of using her, saying she couldn't believe how cold I was. I brushed her off, blaming my behavior on what her sister had done and drawing a parallel to her own troubled marriage. I told her she should confess what happened to her husband, making it clear how much I despised dishonesty. She left, furious, taking the last box with her. As satisfying as it was to be with her, I knew I was just using her as a pawn in my twisted game of revenge. It wasn't about love. It was payback, pure and simple. Her name was Rebecca. She was someone I'd noticed around the office, a charming presence I couldn't quite ignore. We worked in the same building, and I'd see her regularly in a cafe downstairs, usually with her friends, including Marta, who knew about my divorce. One day, Marta was sitting alone, so I asked her to join me for lunch. We talked about life, family, and everything in between. She eventually brought up my divorce. Everyone knew about Jennifer's affair, but no one knew with whom. When people asked, I just shrugged and played dumb. Marta mentioned that Rebecca had recently moved to town with her husband, Jason, about a year ago. Hearing Jason's name felt like a punch to the gut. Marta gave me a knowing look, asking if I was thinking about going after Rebecca. I told her I found Rebecca attractive, nothing more, but in truth, I was already digging into Jason's background. Once I confirmed he was the same guy who had wrecked my marriage, I was determined to seduce Rebecca, even if it meant crossing lines I never thought I would. One afternoon, while I was grabbing lunch with a friend, Rebecca and Jason walked in together. It was him, the guy I caught with Jennifer. I felt my blood boil, but I kept my cool, resisting the urge to start something in public. He didn't recognize me, but I sure as hell knew him, and it fueled my desire to get back at him through Rebecca. A few days later, I saw Rebecca alone and took the chance to introduce myself as Marta's friend. She responded with a smile, and we ended up having lunch together. We talked casually, and she opened up about how her husband was having a hard time adjusting to the town. I told her it was nice to meet her and that she should join me again sometime. I was torn. Part of me was genuinely attracted to Rebecca, but another part was driven by the need to make Jason pay. My feelings were a mess, but I couldn't stop myself from being drawn to her. We started running into each other more often, and soon enough, we were having lunch together almost every day. I found myself liking her more than I expected, and it only complicated things further. One afternoon, I finally told her how I felt. I admitted that she was one of the nicest and most beautiful women I'd ever met, and that if she weren't married, I'd ask her out without hesitation. She hesitated, then quietly said, "But I am married, Mike, and while things aren't perfect, I could never cheat on my husband. It's just not in me." Curious, I asked her about her marriage. Tears filled her eyes as she confessed that she suspected her husband was cheating on her. I held her hand, silently cursing Jason for being such a fool. I couldn't help but think he might still be seeing Jennifer. My anger mixed with my growing feelings for Rebecca, and I suggested we meet after work to talk privately. She was hesitant, worried about how it might look, but I insisted. Eventually, she agreed, but only if we met somewhere public. At dinner, Rebecca opened up more, telling me about her fears and how she'd heard about my divorce from Marta. She sympathized with my situation, expressing her own fear of facing a similar betrayal. It hit me how vulnerable she was, and I realized I was falling for her, something I hadn't planned for. "Rebecca, I need to be honest with you," I said. "I know you're married, but I've developed feelings for you." "Mike, please," she said softly. "I can't go down this road. I'm married." "Rebecca, just hear me out," I continued. "Since I found out about my wife's affair, I've changed. You've probably heard the rumors about me. I'm not the same man I used to be. I wish I could shake off this anger and resentment, but it lingers constantly. My ex-wife and her lover left me with this burning grudge. At first, I was all about revenge. I planned to find his wife and confront them both, but now I'm stuck. The woman I wanted to get back at is the one I've come to care for." Rebecca covered her face in disbelief, realizing what I was saying. "Are you telling me Jason is?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Were you planning to use me to get revenge?" She cried harder and pulled away when I reached out. "A year ago, I found him in my bedroom," I said, pulling out the note Jennifer had left me. "I attacked him and threw him out of the house. I kept this for some reason." Rebecca read the note, tears running down her cheeks. "For months, I watched you come to lunch, day by day. You were the only bright spot I had. Even before I knew who you were, I started falling for you without knowing you were married to him. I asked Marta about you, and learning you were married made me feel terrible. One day, I saw him join you for lunch and I recognized him. I did everything I could to keep my temper in check. If you had been any other woman, I would have already taken my revenge." Rebecca sat there, silent, tears rolling down her face. "I've fallen for you, Rebecca," I continued, "and I couldn't bring myself to hurt the woman I love. But I'm torn. I want to hurt your husband without hurting you. And I also want to be with you. It's been so long since I felt this way. This past year, I've been driven by revenge, and I suspect your husband might be back with Jennifer. I need to know how you feel about me, Rebecca. I promise, no matter what, I won't hurt you." She struggled to find her words. "Mike, this is all too much. I don't know what I feel right now. For you, for my husband, or even for myself. I need time to process everything before I can say anything. I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have the answers yet. I want to help you, but I don't know how." After dinner, I walked Rebecca to her car and apologized if I had overwhelmed her, but I felt she deserved to know. I assured her we could work through whatever came next. She let me give her a quick hug before leaving, but I couldn't shake the feeling I might have made things worse by bringing up Jason's past. The next day, I went to our usual restaurant, hoping to see her, but she never showed. I was filled with dread. Did she confront her husband? Did he hurt her? Had I scared her off? I could barely focus on work that day. Then, when I got home, my phone rang. It was Rebecca, and she sounded upset. "Mike, I need to see you. I know I said I shouldn't come over, but something's changed. Can I come by? Rebecca, I was worried when you didn't show up today. Did Jason hurt you?" "No, it's not that. I just need to talk," she said quickly. I agreed, and just as I hung up, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Rebecca standing there, smiling slightly. "I followed you home," she admitted. "I had to be sure if you were serious about helping me. Hearing you on the phone convinced me. I'm sorry for testing you, but I had to know." Relief washed over me as I saw her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could figure this out together. I hugged her tightly, feeling comforted by her presence. "Why didn't you go to work today?" I asked. She explained, "Last night, I tried to sort things out in my head. Jason, my husband, came home late as usual, claiming to have worked late. I tried to be affectionate, but he brushed me off, saying he was tired. I thought to myself, if a man turned down someone like Rebecca, he must have just satisfied his desires or lost his mind. Rebecca continued, "This morning, I waited for Jason to leave and then searched through the computer files for clues. I work with computers, so I managed to trace a few files with the information you provided. Here's what I found." Handing me a stack of papers, she offered to explain instead of making me read through them. Then she said, "Firstly, I don't love Jason anymore. After discovering what I did, I think I despise him. I won't tolerate being used, and that's one concern I have with you." I held her hands reassuringly. She added, "I'm not sure how I feel about you. Part of me cares deeply, but another part warns me to be cautious, fearing you might just use me for your revenge. So, for now, I want to keep things on hold. If you truly care, you'll understand and wait until our lives are clearer before we proceed. What do you think?" I smiled. "That's all I ask for, a chance to prove myself. I genuinely care, and if I start rushing, just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our agreement with a kiss before we dive into your detective work?" She grinned. "No, let's get started now." My husband applied for this job instead of being transferred, as he claimed. That was his first lie. This was his hometown. I thought he wanted to move back. I agreed because I loved him. He went to his class reunion 16 months ago. I couldn't attend due to a family engagement. He said class reunions are usually boring. Come to think of it, my ex-wife had a class reunion too, I said. I was on a business trip. She wanted to see her old friends. I never thought about it until now. You're a pretty good private investigator. Here are some emails between them before and after the reunion. They were expecting to meet when you caught them having an affair 4 months later. It wasn't their first time. They had been doing it for months already. I got angry. She told me it just happened. I thought my revenge was over, but now things changed. Rebecca could see my hurt. I told Rebecca I wasn't mad at her, but being betrayed by my ex-wife pissed me off. I needed to be kissed to calm down. She screamed, "Stop, you idiot. I'll kiss you." She came up to me, kissed me gently, then with more feeling. As we sat back down, I thanked her. She said, "My pleasure, and I mean pleasure. Let's get back to work. I can't be here all night." "Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records," she said. He called the number almost daily belonging to Jennifer Miller, my ex-wife's maiden name. I didn't know she had a cell phone. "When was it purchased?" I asked. According to my husband's phone records, it was about a month before he was attacked by a couple of thugs named Mike. That means he had the phone before you caught them. It might explain why they got away with it for so long, and why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of this might have come out, and wouldn't have helped her case. "What about you, Rebecca? You're still married to the person. What do you want us to do?" "She caught my slip of us instead of you. I want to take him for everything we have. I want to make him regret it. I want to embarrass him publicly without losing my dignity or you. Rebecca, can you stay in the house without giving anything away?" "No problem. I won't sleep with him. I can cook dinners. If he sees his girlfriend, I'll be fine. Let's go shopping, use joint credit cards, spend freely, run up debt, take cash advances, invest the money. Mike, you're a stockbroker. Why not handle the investments? I want you to trust me. I'm not taking any of it. If we have a meeting, that's my revenge." We started with credit cards. She kissed me before leaving, promising lunch the next day. Instead, we hit banks, taking cash advances with joint cards. Smartly, she didn't max any cards. We discovered he used one for a motel twice a week. For 3 days, we repeated the process with 7 cards. I invested the money in hard-to-access accounts in my name, making her a co-signer for safety. I dug into my ex's life, but found little. I shared what I had with Rebecca, and she took charge. Jennifer now worked at Jason's company as a secretary. Rebecca uncovered their off-duty hangouts. They were careless, thinking nobody noticed. Rebecca's friends documented everything. Rebecca was beloved at work, a computer whiz without the geeky vibe. She helped fellow secretaries, earning their respect and protection. I pondered revenge. I couldn't use Rebecca, the one good thing in my life, like my cheating ex, but I desired payback. I relied on Rebecca for ideas. She refused meetings, not wanting to stoop to my ex's level. She cared for me but remained married. I needed a plan. I'd lived on the edge, associating with unsavory characters. They trusted me with their money. Some became friends despite lifestyle differences. I called a friend for a favor, promising a reward. He agreed, impressed by my plan. Rebecca and I planned our sting. She hesitated about public exposure, but I assured her I'd protect her. Her smile hinted at deeper feelings. I asked Rebecca to take a few days off, whether vacation, sick leave, or otherwise. We had limited time to set up the sting, so everything had to run smoothly. What's the plan, Mike? How will you get revenge without involving me? What do you need me to do? First, stop with the questions, I said, smiling. Next Wednesday, they have room 109 booked until 10 in the evening. I'll reserve the same room for Wednesday morning. While I set up a remote recorder, you'll visit my lawyer, Nana Hart. You'll need a divorce decree drafted up and signed by Jason that night. What if he refuses to sign, Mike? Don't worry, Rebecca. He'll likely sign. I'll explain the full plan later. Or do you prefer a surprise? Mike, you're making me nervous. Your excitement is contagious. I only want you close to me. This revenge is for both of us. I just hope you'll feel the same way about me as I do about you. Are we going too far? I just want to even a score. We'll cause a stir, but their lives will continue unless they refuse to sign your papers. Now, here's the plan. They usually meet between 5 and 6. We'll target Jason first. My friend Frankie and his girls, Sally and Sue, will pay him a visit. They're associates with health issues paid to have interactions with him. Frankie will ensure Jason cooperates. How do you know these people, Mike? They're my clients. They bring in a lot of money, and I help them invest it. Jennifer can choose between meeting with Jason or Frankie. While they're occupied, we'll be in the van with the remote control. When the time's right, you'll walk in, catch them, and demand a divorce. Then, you'll offer Jason a choice. Sign the papers or face exposure. Frankie will ensure your safety. What do you think, Rebecca? She smiled. You're doing this more for me, aren't you? I'm beginning to like this side of you. It's a go. Over the next few days, we finalized everything. Nana Hart, our lawyer, wanted to serve Jason herself. Frankie was ready, and I rented the motel room for Wednesday afternoon. At lunch, we saw my ex-sister-in-law with another man. Rebecca played along, kissing me provocatively to stir up attention. I gestured to the waiter. Isn't she stunning? He nodded. Yes, sir. Turning to Rebecca, I said, You're mine, aren't you, sweetheart? Only you, baby. I belong to only you. She smiled. Though I hoped it was true, I knew she was playing it up for my ex-sister-in-law, who never showed up. I wondered why. After lunch, Rebecca and I bought the necessary equipment at the electronics store. She confirmed that the restaurant kiss was genuine, though partly to rile my ex-sister-in-law. Wednesday morning arrived, and tension mounted. Every detail had to be perfect for the sting. Rebecca sorted the divorce papers with Nana while I set up the video gear at the motel. We met Frankie, who reassured Rebecca about her safety. Earlier, Rebecca sent emails to Jason and Jennifer, posing as each other, planting doubts between them. Sweetheart, I have a very special treat for you tonight. Please, when you arrive, don't ask any questions. I know you'll be surprised, just go along. Also, to make it extra special, let's not communicate for the rest of the day. I want this to be a night you'll always remember. Love you, me. At 4:45 p.m., Rebecca and I parked in our van and waited. At exactly 5 p.m., Jason entered the room. We were tense. This was a major operation for us. At 5:15 p.m., Frankie, Sally, and Sue approached the room. As they knocked, we activated our cameras. We waited to start recording until the action began. We had 2 cameras, one above the lights and another inside the smoke alarm. The picture quality from the pinhole camera was remarkable. I made a mental note to retrieve the cameras the next day. Rebecca and I were on edge as Frankie knocked. When Jason opened the door, he seemed surprised. Frankie explained their purpose, and Jason hesitated, but eventually complied. Sally and Sue, both attractive despite their roles, worked their magic on Jason, who appeared nervous but went along. Rebecca watched through our remote, feeling a mix of emotions, sadness, and satisfaction. She felt betrayed by her husband of 5 years, but also glad her revenge had started. A knock sounded on the door, and Frankie opened it to find Jennifer standing there. He welcomed her inside. Jennifer spotted Jason on the bed, confusion clouding her thoughts. She recalled Jason's email hinting at something special that night. As she entered, Frankie instructed Jennifer to undress. Fear gripped her, seeing the large man commanding her. He assured her he wouldn't touch her. His presence was to protect the women. Sue urged Jennifer to hurry, reminding her they were short on time. Hesitantly, Jennifer began undressing, unaware that cameras were capturing every moment, both audio and visual. Meanwhile, Jason and Jennifer indulged in their desires. As Jennifer came down from her euphoria, Sally began to dress. A knock interrupted them outside, meaning our lawyer had arrived. After assessing the situation, she glanced at the monitor, witnessing Jason and Jennifer engaging in their affair, exchanging illnesses with the associates. Sally and Sue returned to their vehicle, having completed their task effectively. Frankie remained vigilant outside, protecting Rebecca and Nena Hart in case they needed help. Rebecca and Sue approached the door, with Rebecca being the first to enter. Furious, Rebecca unleashed a barrage of strong words at Jason and Jennifer, demanding a divorce immediately. Jason and Jennifer, caught in the act, knew there was no way to justify their actions. Rebecca expressed her disappointment and Jason's betrayal and her determination to end the marriage. Then Nena Hart walked in. Jason, meet my lawyer, Nena Hart. She'll explain the divorce terms. I want this process started tonight so I can get you out of my life ASAP, and you can be with your girlfriend. Both Jason and Jennifer got out of bed and began dressing. Jason's composure vanished at the sound of Rebecca's voice. He didn't get satisfaction, and they didn't shower, so the risk of illness lingered. I'm Nena Hart, representing Rebecca. The terms are simple. 1. Rebecca leaves tonight, taking what she wants within 24 hours. You won't be there, and the apartment's yours. 2. You pay all bills up to today, including joint credit cards. Rebecca hands over the joint cards, never uses them again, and handles her own cards. 3. Each manages their own car insurance payments and maintenance. 4. Rebecca gets $8,000 from your joint savings tomorrow. You both keep your $401. Yours with over $80,000. Hers with $155,000. If you agree, sign now. It's final. Rebecca already had. Just sign as the husband. Nena handed him the document while Jennifer washed. Jason asked, "What if I don't sign tonight?" Nena replied, "It's void in 5 minutes, then we'll pursue the same terms in court, plus half your $401. It's a good deal. I suggest you take it." Rebecca went to the closet, retrieved the recorder tape, and stated, "This records tonight's events, evidence for our divorce." Jason retorted, "I'm not that knave. You can't use it. You took it without permission." Nena chuckled, "You're really clueless. We won't use it in court, but we'll send copies to your company and its headquarters. They won't like married employees having affairs." Jason moved forward, but Frankie reappeared. "You are planning to injure my friends, were you, Jason?" Jason backed down. "Jason, you have 3 minutes to decide," Nena declared. Jennifer whispered to Jason, "Nena Hart represents my husband. and I got nothing. She's top-notch. Take the deal or face trouble. Plus, we'll lose our jobs if the tape leaks. 1 minute left, Nina warned. Jason shouted, "Wait, I'll sign, but I want the tape." Rebecca handed the tape to Frankie along with a $500 bonus. Nina reiterated, "This deal is final. Any issues, contact me. Don't bother Rebecca, or you'll be arrested." Jason signed, received a copy, and Rebecca and Nina left. Frankie gave Jason the tape, then left with the others. Rebecca and Nina returned to the van jubilant. Rebecca kissed me quickly, but the mood shifted when Nina spoke. "Mike, until the divorce is final, you can't see Rebecca. We can't risk anyone seeing you together. As long as you're not linked, everything should proceed as planned. We may face challenges with recent credit card transactions, but our documents support us unless Rebecca is accused of fraud. That's why I allowed Jason to keep his $401K. There's enough money for banks to pursue him if he tries to declare bankruptcy. There's no money in Rebecca's name except the $88,000 Shield withdrawal tomorrow. I suggest keeping it in the same bank, but only under your name to avoid scrutiny." Nina added, "After the divorce, there should be no more issues, and you two can reconnect if you choose. Mike, you mentioned your employer's offer to set up a brokerage firm in another state for a couple of months. I recommend taking it soon. Rebecca will be fine, and I'll keep an eye on her. Right now, you're Rebecca's biggest concern. I can't force you, but I strongly advise it." Rebecca cried, and I comforted her, knowing Nina was right. I was the current problem, the weak link. I kissed Rebecca goodbye, promising to wait for her after the divorce. Nina and Rebecca left with Nina driving Rebecca home to gather her belongings with the rented U-Haul. Nina assured me I could call her for updates or if I needed to talk about Rebecca alone. I checked the monitor and saw Jason and Jennifer had left. I packed up my equipment, grabbing an extra tape copy just in case. Funny how no one questions a backup. With everything gathered, I headed home, feeling happy for Rebecca yet sad for myself. The following day, I spoke with my boss about the temporary job in Chicago, scheduled to start on Friday. I hoped everything would work out for Rebecca. She truly deserved the best. It seemed she had achieved her revenge, leaving me feeling isolated. Assisting Rebecca had been enjoyable, and my affection for her remained strong. Upon arriving in Chicago, I immersed myself in work as we launched a new brokerage firm from the ground up. During my off hours, thoughts of Rebecca consumed me. Over the initial weeks, I wondered about her well-being. One day, I reached out to Nina Hart, who reassured me that everything was proceeding smoothly. Jason's attempts to contest the divorce decree were met with resistance from Nina, prompting his lawyer to advise against further confrontation. Jason's unfounded accusations against Rebecca lacked evidence, leading Nina to warn him of potential legal repercussions. Nina also revealed that Jason and Jennifer had contracted an illness requiring treatment and prohibiting certain activities until recovery. This news brought a smile to my face. Furthermore, Nina informed me that Rebecca had moved into a pleasant apartment near her workplace, taking half of their belongings to furnish her new home. Rebecca was advised to refrain from mentioning me to avoid any connections being made. Although she wasn't dating anyone yet, it had only been a few weeks. In private conversations, Rebecca expressed her longing for me and acknowledged my kindness. Time didn't fly by during my time in Chicago as much as I wished it had. I didn't feel much better than before when I was seeking revenge. Back then, at least I could see Rebecca every day. I took a break and visited my parents in Michigan for Thanksgiving, needing to escape Chicago for a while. It was good to be with family. I took my sister Christmas shopping and bought gifts for everyone, including engagement and wedding rings for Rebecca, hoping for a future together. Returning to Chicago after Thanksgiving, I anticipated about 3 more weeks there. The cold, windy loneliness of the city weighed heavily on me, despite its beautiful lights. With the new agents, we successfully launched the business, attracting many clients eager to invest before year-end. Back in Ohio, My boss praised our achievements, though I hoped my personal life would also improve. 2 days before Christmas, upon returning to my apartment, I called Nana Hart. She was pleased to hear from me and asked about the business. I inquired about Rebecca and the progress of the divorce. Nana hesitated before revealing it was finalized 2 days prior. Though she couldn't provide Rebecca's number, she promised to inform her of my return. Feeling uncertain, I pondered Rebecca's thoughts during my absence and decided to visit our favorite restaurant where we used to lunch together. I hoped to see her. Marta, a friend, spotted me and joined me, hoping for insight. We exchanged pleasantries, and Marta shared updates on her family and upcoming holidays, offering a glimpse into life since I'd been away. I inquired if Rebecca still worked for the company. Marta confirmed she did, but mentioned her recent divorce, which happened quickly. She observed that Rebecca seemed less cheerful now, refusing dates and focusing on work. Marta felt sorry for her, but believed Rebecca needed to navigate through it on her own. Despite this, everyone still cared for her and hoped she'd find the right partner, as she deserved better than a cheating husband. I asked Marta if Rebecca was at work that day. She confirmed she was, but mentioned she had received a call an hour ago and left for the afternoon instead of having lunch. Rebecca wouldn't return until the week after Christmas. I wished Marta a Merry Christmas and asked her to send my regards to her family before heading home. Upon arriving, I found nothing on the answering machine. Feeling a bit down, the phone rang, and I hoped it was Rebecca, but it turned out to be another telemarketer asking for money. Frustrated, I hung up. I realized Rebecca might not necessarily call me about her investments, as other agents could have updated my client files while I was away. I decided to call the office to check on Rebecca's accounts, but reached voicemail. Glancing at the clock, I noticed it was already 5:12 p.m., and the offices would remain closed until Monday for the holidays. I found myself in the dark during a holiday weekend with all the offices closed. Frustrated, I wondered if I still had a chance with Rebecca or if I'd lost her for good. The uncertainty was unbearable. I needed answers. The phone rang, and I hurried to answer it. It was Nina, my lawyer, informing me she had relayed my return to Rebecca and that the divorce was finalized. Jason's attempts to contest it failed, forcing him to use over half his $401 to cover credit card charges. Grateful for Nina's update, I thanked her and wished her a Merry Christmas. A knock on the door revealed Mary, my neighbor, who had kindly collected my mail and tidied up my apartment while I was away. I invited her in briefly. She was a kind older woman who cleaned apartments for extra income, often attending to mine twice a week. Mary handed me my mail and offered a tray of homemade holiday cookies. I asked her to wait a moment as I had a gift for her too. I presented her with an envelope containing $300 in cash for Christmas. Grateful, she thanked me and left. Mary's kindness was a bright spot in the world, and I appreciated her presence. Feeling hungry, I called the local pizza shop for delivery, opting to stay in for the night. I requested a pizza and asked them to stop by the grocery store to pick up a 12-pack of Miller Lite beer. Living in a smaller city had its perks, including hometown conveniences like this. I opted to switch on the TV for the latest news while awaiting my pizza delivery. Half an hour later, the doorbell chimed. Assuming it was the pizza guy, I rose to collect my order. Upon opening the door, to my surprise, Rebecca stood there with a broad grin. Tears welled up in my eyes as I exclaimed, "I thought you were the pizza guy." She chuckled. "Sorry to disappoint you. No pizza, just me." I ushered her into the living room and enveloped her in a hug. She felt comforting as always. "I missed you, Rebecca," I said. "It's wonderful to see you again." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was the pizza delivery guy with my order. After swiftly paying him, I returned to Rebecca. "Hungry? We've got pizza and beer," I offered, holding them up. Rebecca, still smiling, remarked, "You're quite the character, you know." I had everything planned to say, and now I couldn't even think straight. "I need to tell you a few things. Then we can enjoy the pizza while it's hot. I know you hate cold pizza. All right, big guy, I missed you too. By the way, I'm officially divorced now. Just found out today that you were back. I didn't want to leave a phone message that seemed too impersonal. I left work early after Nina informed me of your return. I went out to get you a Christmas present of sorts. You'll see it after we eat. It's not often you treat me to dinner, so let's dig in. As I fetched paper plates, I asked her about the nature of the present. She flashed that heartwarming smile and remarked, "You'll see. Now eat your pizza and pass me a beer." Chuckling, she relaxed as we dined. We discussed her job and its success, and I shared details about the agency we launched, skirting around the looming issues. They would be addressed soon. After satisfying our hunger, Rebecca turned to me and asked, "Are you ready for your kind of present now?" I grinned and replied, "Absolutely." "Where is it?" Rebecca presented a small sack resembling a lunch bag. "I'll be right back," she announced as she exited the room. I discreetly retrieved the ring I had purchased for her from a drawer and slipped it into my pocket. From the bedroom, she called out, "Are you ready?" I responded, "I think so." Upon her return, she declared, "I bought this kind of present for you today. You can unwrap it if you'd like." Standing before me in a lacy red silk bra and matching lingerie with a small red silk bow in her hair, she said, "I'm no longer married, so there's no cheating involved. If you want your present, we can head to the bedroom, and you can unwrap it there." Tears streamed down my face as the woman I had yearned for over a year stood before me, offering herself with resolve. I looked at her and said, "On one condition," retrieving the ring from my pocket. I continued, "If you'll marry me." Overcome with emotion, she rushed into my arms as I embraced her warm, soft body. Amidst tears, she exclaimed, "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, yes, yes. God, how I've come to love you." Lifting her into my arms, I carried her to my bedroom. While I had read about moments like this, it was my first real experience. Exhausted, I had to lay on her for a few moments. I had never felt so drained. Rolling off her, she nestled close, and we drifted into sleep. We must have slept for quite some time as the house was shrouded in darkness when we awoke. It had been too long since I had woken up next to a woman I desired. Needing to use the bathroom, I left her briefly. When I returned, Rebecca had cleaned up and donned one of my long t-shirts from the dresser. It had never looked better on her. Rebecca took a shower and cleaned up while I slipped the leftover pizza into the oven for a bit. It always tasted better out of the oven. As we ate pizza, we talked some more. I asked Rebecca when she wanted to get married. She replied that she wanted it to be as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait. By then, it was about 10 p.m. I called Nina Hart at her house. She answered by asking, "What's the matter, Mike?" She must have had caller ID. I told her that Rebecca and I had a problem, and maybe she could help solve it, seeing she was a lawyer. "What is it, Mike? I'll help if I can." "Rebecca and I want to get married as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and we need a judge to marry us. Do you know anyone?" Nina started laughing. "So Rebecca called you, did she? I'm happy for both of you. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. We'll get your marriage license, and then come to my house. You see, Mr. Hart, my husband is a judge. I know he'll marry you. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp." The next morning, Rebecca, who was dressed beautifully, and I, dressed in a suit, met Nina at the recorder's office. We got our license and headed over to Nina's house to get married. Her husband seemed to be a pretty nice guy for a judge. You never know what to expect with lawyers and judges, but we knew Nina was the best. Rebecca didn't have much family left in the area, just a few distant cousins, so we decided to head up to Michigan and surprise my family with my new wife. To say they were happy or overjoyed would be putting it mildly. Ecstatic would be a better word. They all loved Rebecca. How could they not? She was definitely part of the family. Wow, Christmas turned out pretty good after all. We had to head back after Christmas. We both had jobs and now had moving to do. We decided to live in my apartment. Hers was on a month-to-month lease anyway. Each day after work, we would move some of her stuff over to my place. It was fun doing just about everything together. The girls where she worked were so happy for her. They said the old Rebecca was back. Marta was a bit shocked when she found out I was the new husband, remembering that I was a rebel and very vengeful. I remember Rebecca telling her, "Don't worry, Marta. He's a sweetheart, and I love him dearly." The big New Year's Eve bash was coming up. Most of the successful business people from the area attended it. I asked Rebecca, "Sweetheart, want to go to the bash of the year? Our first time that everyone can see us together. I want to show you off. Besides, our ex-spouses might even be there." Rebecca was thinking, then looked at me and said, "Mike, I love you with all my heart, and I want everyone to know it. Yes, we will be going to the New Year's party, my dear husband." I watched her starting to get ready. She took out her lacy red silk lingerie and bra that belonged to me, kind of, and said that she was going to wear them that night. She looked over at me and started laughing. "What am I going to do with you? Doesn't it ever stop and take a break?" she said, looking at the bulge in my pants. "Not with you around," I replied. Off to the New Year's party we went. Rebecca looked stunning. She had on a red blouse that matched her lacy red silk bra and lingerie perfectly. Lace and silk, it doesn't get much hotter than that. Other than the blouse being really low cut to show ample bosom, her skirt was a black mini skirt with a lace bottom. She would have to watch how she sat in that skirt. No matter how she sat, you would see thigh because of the side slit. She looked so good, dressed borderline daring, but in a good way. Everyone wanted us to sit at their table, my boss and his group, Rebecca's friends, and even the few friends I had. Nina and Judge Hart invited us to their table, and that's where we decided to sit. I looked at Nina and told her, I never saw a lawyer look that good. She looked fantastic. They introduced us to everyone else at their table. They were mostly judges and their wives, and all seemed like pretty nice people. The music was loud, but it was New Year's Eve. Rebecca and I got up and danced all the slow dances. Other men asked Rebecca to dance, but her answer was always, "Not this year. I only want to dance with my husband. This is our year to be together." The one exception we made was that I danced one dance with Nina, and Rebecca danced once with the judge. They were special friends. As we were dancing, we found ourselves next to Ashley, my ex-wife's sister. It just happened that we almost ran into Ashley and her husband on a crowded dance floor. She looked and said, "Oh my God, it's Mike." I looked over at her and said, "Well, good evening, Ashley, and Happy New Year to you." Then I said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Rebecca. Rebecca, this is Ashley and her husband." He reached forward to shake Rebecca's hand and said, "Bob, my name's Bob." Rebecca gave her patented smile and said, "Glad to meet you, Bob and Ashley." Then Rebecca looked at Ashley and said, "Didn't we meet before at Robson's restaurant on Old Route 40 about 2 months ago?" Bob replied, "No, that place is too expensive for our tastes." Ashley turned white and said, "Nice meeting you too. We have to get back to our seats." We knew she had to get back and tell Jason and Jennifer that we were there. We looked over at their table. Jennifer knocked over her drink when she found out I was there. We saw them turn to look at us quickly. We could hear Jennifer say, "Oh my God, Jason, he's with your ex-wife." Jason almost fell off his chair trying to turn and look. Ashley looked at Jennifer and said, "Jennifer, he introduced her as his wife." Jason said, "That jerk set us up. They took us for over $100,000. Plus, they set us up to get an illness. How did they know everything?" Jennifer said, "Mike told me that someday he would get even with us." Jason said, "Maybe we can try taking them back to court." Ashley laughed. "Give it up, you two. Do you guys see who they're sitting with? Nina Hart and a half dozen judges. And if that's not enough, Jason, He could kick your behind from here into tomorrow. Make no mistake, Mike's all man, and by the looks of his wife, she's all woman. They make a great couple. It was after midnight, and the crowd was beginning to thin. Nina and the judge said their goodnights, as well as the people at their table. So after our next dance, Rebecca and I decided to sit in a booth not too far from Jennifer, Jason, and their group. Rebecca left for the restroom. When she came back, she looked at Jason and Jennifer, kind of staring at her out of the corner of their eyes. Rebecca asked me, "Are you ready?" I looked at her and asked, "Ready for what?" "To go home, honey." "No, Mike, are you ready for your revenge?" she said as she slipped her lacy red silk lingerie into my breast pocket, kind of sticking up like a hanky. Then, in words loud enough for the other table to hear, she said, "Happy New Year, lover." Who said revenge isn't sweet. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.